how it's developed and seeing what it is today, it's a lot, you know, it reminds me a lot of these instruments because, you know, you think taking Route 66, you think about, you know, the Dust Bowl era, people making these huge migrations, and people were building guitars just like this. You know, it was the same reason. It was because you can't just go out and buy an instrument, you know, but a lot of times the worse the times are, the more you need a creative outlet for that angst and that sadness, anger, whatever you're feeling. You know, building a guitar like this, if you're taking that road trip down Route 66 because your home is, you know, covered in dirt now from the Dust Bowl, and your farm's no good anymore, you know, your livelihood's, you know, gone, you have to find something else. Sometimes building a guitar out of whatever's lying around on that road trip and stopping on the side of the road and kind of getting those feelings out, I think that helped a lot of people. And they even called them, I think, Dust Bowl guitars in that context. It was very similar to the cigar box guitars you'd see in the Civil War with people in Civil War camps playing to feel better and making whatever they could out of whatever was lying around. Same with the Depression era jug bands. And so, you know, the history, I think, and when I play this guitar, you know, this wouldn't have been something that they would have built on Route 66 in the, you know, in the Dust Bowl era. But it reminds me of that journey that we took out there, and it reminds me of a lot of the things I saw and traveling through those deserts and traveling through those long expanses where you could just imagine people in their old cars packed up with everything they owned and just moving on to try to find something better. But that's why I was really excited to play this guitar first, you know, after just finishing that trip and getting back here to St. Louis safe and seeing all of that. It just, I think every time I pick this guitar up now, I'm going to remember that trip and it's going to inspire me. But, you know, every guitar, you know, on stage, I think I've got about 19 guitars up here. I think that's about a record. I'm trying to break my record for most guitars in one show today. So, and if you built any also, I'd love to play it either during the workshop, during my performance, and I've got a nice long, I think, four-hour performance today, so I'll have plenty of time to, you know, grab an instrument and test it out and talk about it a little bit. But, you know, I'll just kind of keep going as far as, you know, again, if you have any questions, let me know. But we were talking a second ago about hammered resonators, and when you play an instrument like this, you know, you notice a lot of different things. A lot of different things contribute to the overall tone of an instrument like this. This has this metal Route 66 top on it. So in a way, you know, that is the resonator. You know, resonator is basically this metal. It can be a cone, it can be a plate, it can be a, you know, anything basically metal. A license plate, a tin can lid, a dog bowl, a little cat bowl, something like that. But what it does is when you put this bridge and you put the pressure of those strings down, you know, the strings push down on the bridge pushes down on the soundboard, which is what vibrates and generates a lot of that tone. And so since this soundboard is this metal, aluminum, I'm not sure what kind of metal it is, but you get the resonance of this metal instead of this wood-on-wood sort of resonance. So it adds all these different overtones. Originally, the resonator was a cone shape, and it was designed to project sound like a speaker. It was designed to make an acoustic guitar much louder before they had all this amplification that we have today. But with a guitar like this, you know, there's no sound hole. It's not really designed to make it louder. It's designed, for one, to make it look cool and interesting, I think, you know, but also to give you these different overtones, these different, you know, just a different tone. So this also has a piezo pickup in it. And generally when you talk about the pickup is what picks up the sound. So when I plug it in, if I didn't have a pickup, you wouldn't be hearing anything from the PA over here. But when I touch it, when I strum it, it's coming through the PA, and plug it in, and that's pickup is what actually picks up the noise, or the music, if you're depending on what you're playing. But the piezo pickup is actually under this white saddle right here. If I lifted that up, you'd see this little rod, and that's called a rod piezo. They also have round piezos that are in it, look like a little disc, almost like a little quarter or something, or a nickel. And you can glue those in there also, and that picks up the sound in a different way. So a little rod piezo like this is going to pick up most of the sound from the actual bridge and less from the guitar. And if it's a a disc piezo glued to that spot, it's basically like putting your ear against that spot and plugging a cable into your other ear. And you can actually test the placement on piezos by holding your ear up to certain parts of the guitar, and it kind of gives you at least a good idea of what that's going to sound like. But so, even before I played this guitar, I was thinking, when I take this on stage, I know it's got this metal tin on top. I know that it has the rod piezo. And sometimes these piezo pickups have a tendency to feed back, and that's because they're almost like attaching a little microphone to your guitar. And if the guitar can hear the PA system or the amplifier, whatever's next to it, and it actually picks that up, it's going to send that signal back into the guitar also. So it causes this sound loop, and that's called feedback, and that's when it gets really loud and high-pitched and out of control. So you want to control that as much as you can, because then you can play loud and it's not going to feed back, it's just going to play music. And so this rod piezo does a pretty good job. I mean, I'm playing it pretty loud right here, and I could probably strum it and hold it up to the speaker, and it's not feeding back. So it's a really well placed and well done pickup. Good job, Jay. That's Jay over there. He built this one right here, and I believe he's got a few more of these with him. So if you like this Route 66 one, you should talk to Jay over there. But that's one of the things I get asked a lot in these kinds of workshops is about piezo pickups or magnetic pickups, where you put them, how they affect the sound. And so you get the metal overtones from this. You get a nice woody sustain though from the wood on the back, and this is a routed out body. It actually was two solid pieces that were glued together, right, Jay? And then he routed it out, so it's like a semi-hollow guitar. Pretty much, it's like the back is one piece, the sides are one piece, and they're glued together and clamped nice and tight, so the whole thing resonates really well. So you don't get a lot of resonance from the plate on the top, but you get the resonance from the wood on the sides and the back. So you get sustain, but you get a nice open sort of tinny sound from this. But because it's the rod piezo, and because of all the wood, it doesn't sound real shrill. Like sometimes if you just put a cookie tin and you put a bridge on it with a neck going through it, a lot of times you get this really tinny sort of hollow sound that's hard to control. So this has a really nice balance actually of all of those different elements. Here's another resonator, and this is another one I've never played before. This was built by Clark Stores from right here in St. Louis too. And this one is sort of, I remember seeing him build this online. And I believe he was, the guy who built this, Richard Brantley from out of North Carolina, he did an amazing job on this. I think this was the 4th guitar he's ever built. And he gave it to me at a show one day, and I just couldn't put it down ever since. I think I played this guitar more on my Smoke and Mirrors album than I did any other guitar that was on that album, because there's just some sound in this guitar that you can't get anywhere else. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized it had a lot to do with this piece right here. This is a resonator, and this is a hammered resonator that was made out of a tin can lid. So it's a big vegetable tin can lid, and of course they cut the can off and had the lid. And so instead of just putting the lid flat though, what he did is he got I forget what, a dead blow hammer or something like that, like this plastic heavy hammer with this round sort of tip on it. And he put the can on some cardboard on his workbench and just started hammering away around the edge. And eventually it raises the lid, and it also tightens that area right there. It makes it really tight and really responsive to vibration. And so what it also does is it raises the action. And so the higher the action is on the bridge, the higher that bridge is, the more that string tension is going to push down on it, so the more vibration is going to get injected into that soundboard, or in this case in the resonator. And you can tell it's just a nice simple design. A lot of bracing in there. He's actually used less bracing on a lot of his newer guitars, which gives them about 2 or 3 times the acoustic volume. But this one, there's just some kind of chemistry with this one that works really well. And it's got a little bottle top, a disc piezo covered in super glue that's inside this little beer bottle cap right here inside. And I've got a video online that Richard Brantley did, and it talked about how he hammered this resonator, and also how he glues and pots those pickups right there. So you can check that out on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Justin Johnson Live. But this one that Clark built right here is also hammered, but it's hammered inside, and so it comes up in the middle. So you can see right here it's sort of hammered down and then comes back up and then hammered down again. So you get a similar quality in the sense that it's still this tin can lid, it's still a resonator, but the fact that it's done differently, I'll play these two guitars for you and let you hear the difference. Because essentially it's the same idea. It's a tin can lid that's hammered on a cigar box body with a 4-string neck. What kind of pickup? Does this have a rod piezo in it, Clark? This is Clark over here. He built this one right here. And this has a great tone too, and also great resistance to feedback. So. Tone too. That sounds really great, Clark. I'm really glad you brought that out, and it's got a floating tailpiece too. So you know, the thing I see about the difference between this guitar and the other resonator here is one, because the resonator goes in instead of out, there's going to be less pressure down on it, so it's going to be less punchy. And you notice how warm that sounds? A lot of times with a metal resonator, you get more of those high frequency overtones, and especially with this part right here, it's higher, so there's even less string tension pushing down, because if the strings were attached down here and went over, there'd be more pressure putting down. Or sometimes even if there's a cover on the resonator cone, there'll even be more downward pressure on that cone. So this is it's pushing down on the resonator, but it's not pushing down so hard that it's squeezing all the tone out. It's just sort of resting on there. So you get this nice warm tone, but it's not a boxy tone though. You get this resonator kind of quality tone from it. So it's a really great balanced guitar. Then I'll play you, keep that tone in your mind. So you can see it, you know, very similar construction, very different tone. This has almost like a banjo quality to it, you know, which I always thought was interesting about this guitar. And I think that, again, that's because this resonator right here was hammered out, so it's up higher. The tension pushing down on that cone right there is really, really strong. And this top of this cone right here is also really tight. And when Richard, he did the video on how to build this, again, that's on my YouTube page, and he taps one of the lids before he hammers it, and it's a lot lower, it's a lot flatter. And then after he hammers it, it rings like a bell when you flick the inside. So it's like, it almost brings all the tension, all the quality of that resonator, that little cone right here, and when it's flat, it just kind of is limp and sort of non-sustaining, and then when it's hammered, it just comes to life. So it's really interesting how he did that. And the very, very simple guitar, again, with the box, the cone, the simple piezo pickup in there, and that's about it. But again, you get all these different tones, and I've played several of his like this. I love this guitar so much that he started selling them as the Justin Johnson signature resonator from Homegrown Strings, and I totally was excited and happy for him to use that name, because again, I've used this guitar on recordings probably more than any other guitar, because I just can't get that sort of weird resonator banjo sound out of any other instrument. Does anyone have any questions?